and we'll get going. People will join us as they come. A few features in case you aren't familiar with webinars. One is, Dee, is it recorded? I think we're recording, are we? Oh yeah, we are, good. One feature is that there is a question and answer option on webinars. It isn't normally on Zoom calls. So if you want to ask a question of us, feel free to either use the chat feature, which a lot of us I think are familiar with at this stage, or use the question and answer feature. So again, welcome to everybody. This is Motivated to Move. This is Vintage Fitness team putting this on. My name's Erin, and I'm the owner of Vintage Fitness right in the center there. And I'd like to warmly welcome 3 members of our team. We have, starting from the guy, it's Bill, who's going to speak later, Pamela, who does our stretch classes that you may recognize. And then just on the other side of me is Dee. So I really, really appreciate the team doing this. It's a learning curve for some of us, and our motivation stories aren't rah. We get up at 5 and are super excited to exercise. There's our own struggles we have with motivating ourselves to exercise. We'll talk about as we go through. Okay. Let me just shift over. So today we're going to talk a bit about what is motivation, and your exercise plan could be successful or not successful depending on how you're motivated, and really understanding how you're motivated. So you're developing an exercise plan that really meets with that. Pamela is then going to take us through why some people are motivated to exercise and others aren't. Dee and Bill are going to give you tips from Vintage Fitness trainers, both trainers and clients, and some of the clients are on the webinars today. And then we're going to try to finish with a real action plan. So we have specific things that you're going to do after the session to get you motivated to move. So if you're not familiar with Vintage Fitness, we only work with older adults. We do personal training. These days, it's mostly virtual, other than the areas that aren't in lockdown. And clients do achieve their health goals with us. They tend to be slow and steady. So this isn't building the bikini body. This isn't a 90-day transformation where there's a before and after picture. That's not what we're about. Make small changes, do the right changes to your lifestyle, and over time, it can make a huge difference. The company was started in 2005, so we have been doing this for a while. It's actually my middle daughter's 16th birthday today, and I wrote the business plan when I was pregnant with her. So as I see her grow and as I celebrate her 16th birthday, I really see, how long we've been doing this for, and we believe passionately about it, which is why we continue. We've been doing it for a long time. So people are motivated in different ways, and there was a study by a sports psychologist at the University of Munich who looked at most common motivations. And the first is affiliation. So this would be somebody that gets motivated. So if you're the type of person that if you're going to do your exercise or go for a walk, you want to walk with a friend, you want to do it with a group, you want to make an appointment, you need an accountability partner, either a trainer, a friend. It's about maybe a bit more about the social connection for you. So if that's you, then making sure that you have an exercise plan that fits that is super important. And then there's achievement, and there can be a bit of both. Like Bill was saying, he's got a little bit of both in his exercise plan. But achievement is the person that sets a goal and then wants to achieve that goal, and it's the plan to achieve it that is really most important to them. So that person doesn't necessarily need a buddy. It's not really about the social connection. It's I want to get stronger for this trip I'm going on when COVID clears in the fall, and these are the things I want to achieve, and that is where I'm at. So that type of person, it would be a different type of training plan and a different way to motivate that person. So it's probably worth just spending a minute or two thinking, how am I motivated? Is it more affiliation based, or is it more achievement? All right, Pamela.
Unmute myself. Hi, everyone. Erin knows I jumped all over talking about motivation because I consider myself one of the most unmotivated fitness professionals that there is out there. And I find this to be such an interesting topic. So I'd love to just start with why where we don't feel motivated, specifically for exercise. So a lot of the times exercise is unfamiliar. Many people spend their lives, playing sports or hiking or having those sorts of goals, and strength training becomes something that's unfamiliar. Or any sort of exercise. Maybe you've never played sports or you've never hiked or done anything. So something that can be really demotivating when the doctor tells you that you have to exercise is that you're really unfamiliar with it. We have a solution for that. We're pretty familiar with exercise. Another one is that a lot of people's lives are very busy and it becomes just this other thing to do, which contributes to us feeling overwhelmed. We don't see it as this thing that lifts us up and helps us perform better and helps us do all the things that we need to do better. It's perceived as just this other stress on us, other thing to do. Our life is very sedentary, relatively speaking. So we don't have these built-in physical jobs anymore. A lot of our life is sitting. We travel in cars, so there's just not a lot of built-in exercise in our lives. And when you're, that sedentary stuff can be kind of like a little bit of a cycle. So when you're, the more sedentary you are, the less likely you are to feel motivated to move. Perception is a big one. Whatever your views are on strength training, maybe it's those, really fit bodybuilding people in the gym. Maybe it's perceived as a luxury or something have to do with weight management. We want to start to change our perception and realize that exercise is necessary. It helps us have a strong body, a strong mind, and a strong spirit. The effect that exercise has on our brains is just so profound. So starting to shift that perception that you might have, or any biases that you might have towards what you think strength training is. I think part of that as well too is recognizing that strength training should be customized to you, and that's what trainers are for, is to help create exercises that create a stronger body, not just whatever you see on YouTube or whatever the yoga Lululemon people look like or whatever the bodybuilders look like. Just really changing that perception, and having these biases can hold us back sometimes to getting stronger and being motivated. Sometimes the consequences to inactivity aren't immediate or apparent. Sometimes we don't see the effects of a sedentary life until it's detrimental to get moving. And we've morphed into this society that's, very instantly gratified and very, very virtual as well too. So it's hard to see what the consequences might be, or maybe the perception that it's too late. If you are an older adult and you're later in life, like feeling like it's too late to start a strength training program. And I think that circles back to some of the biases that we might have and some of the perceptions of exercise, that it needs to look a certain way. No matter what your age or where you're at or what you've been through, operations, surgeries, what kind of pain that you're in, you do deserve to feel strong. And, that's when people like us can kind of help customize exercise and give you a bit of a different spin on it. If anybody's familiar with the chat or the feature, I'd love to hear some of the reasons that, you might feel unmotivated. I know I didn't cover all of them, and there's a plethora and everyone's so different. It'd be nice to hear, we really do understand this, even as fitness professionals.
I think as the chat comes in, a lot of what we hear from our clients is pain. I'm in pain, and I think that it might make my pain worse. So I really do feel unmotivated to exercise because I'm worried about the pain I'm in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that, circles back to, having someone that actually knows what exercise is all about, and that exercise has to be customized, that it doesn't look one way for everybody. And, everybody should be met where they're at. And I guess then we'll take a look at the next slide. Unless anyone else wants to chime in on that one, any of the other presenters? So looking at why some people seem really motivated. So this is, something I struggled with because the first thing that I want to do in the morning is hit the snooze button and stay curled up. I love, I like getting out to walk and stuff, but as far as exercise and strength training goes, it took me a bit to get into the gym. It wasn't one of these things that like, oh, I love this and I want to do this all the time. I like the way that it feels and I like the way that the results, but actually doing it is just, I never wanted to. So I was curious about these people that seemed, so motivated and so driven. And the big secret is, and what I found out when I'm talking to people, is that most people that are committed to fitness are just that. They're committed. They're not necessarily motivated. And I learned that about myself as well, is that I have a huge commitment to my wellness, but it's not necessarily that I feel motivated to do it. And what a lot of studies show is that, commitment and inspiration often trump motivation. So learning to create those habits that keep you committed to exercise, and instead of waiting for this motivation to sweep over you, because motivation, what studies are showing is that it comes and it goes. There's certain reasons and certain triggers to feeling motivated, and it's not always the case. But if you have solid habits and plan in place, rather, and you're committed to it and you have reasons why exercise is important to you, that can really help with keeping you going, even when you don't feel motivated. So going to the next slide and just talking about creating those commitments and habits that help to keep you motivated.
So just before you go there, I just a couple of things coming up in the chat, Pamela. So a few people talking about what demotivates them. So, we have Luba saying she's finally motivated to make exercise a priority, but she realizes she needs group support, and then to see the results. There's a few people that talk about back. So Elaine's talking about her back pain as a barrier. Sharon's talking about her rheumatoid arthritis, some inflammation and pain. And this is my mom saying this, many more things I prefer to do, like reading. Oh, that's good. And then you were asked to, and I'm not sure where this, Wendy, if Pamela said this, but can you please repeat the healthy spirit sentence?
I think in the beginning, I was just mentioning, I'm just going to go back to that. I think something I said was just combining, when I was speaking about health, just that healthy body, mind, and spirit. They kind of go together, and by spirit you can mean, like healthy essence, healthy soul, whatever that means to you. I can expand on that maybe a little bit later or offline if anyone has any questions about that.
Great, thank you, Pamela, and thanks for participating in the chat, guys.
Yeah, this is great. Having the engagement is so nice. So creating motivation, and that's another thing as well too, just knowing that you can create motivation even when you're not feeling it. You can have habits and processes in place that help you keep going even when you're not feeling motivated. So taking a look at any of the mental and physical roadblocks that you might have to exercise, and this is great as everyone was mentioning their pain and the things that they prefer doing, like those are both mental and physical roadblocks. So having an awareness of that and finding the solution to those specifically can be really helpful when it comes to motivation. So the pain portion of it, working with someone that, can really work around the pain, or, hiring someone that's really specialized with what you have going on in your body to help you work your body in a way that there is no pain. And making exercise mean something to you and having it align with your values is something that's been really important for me. Finding those whys and the deeper meanings to exercise. So taking a look at maybe what some of your core values are. One of mine is family. And when I am exercising and when I feel stronger, I show up both better for my family, both mentally and physically. Exercise most certainly changes my mood. I feel a little bit better when I exercise. So, having that reflect on, how I interact with my family, my job, and being passionate is really important to me as well. And exercise creates energy for me. Training myself helps me learn more and more about the bodies and the experiences, and lets me be energized for my own clients so that I can offer motivation when it's not there. So yeah, having those, just tying exercise into what your values are, and maybe that's not necessarily physical goals or future goals, because sometimes a future goal just isn't enough to kick you into gear, because it's, again, with sort of instant gratification, things like that. It's maybe hard to see the future. So really having an emotional attachment and reasons why you're committed to exercise and to feeling good. Making every single workout matter. So every experience that you have, training, or even if it's a walk or anything like that, just having it matter to you. Again, sort of attaching it to those values and not making it a future goal. I struggled with that as a bodybuilder for many years. And my workouts were very attached to an outcome and a goal. And when I stopped bodybuilding and I lost that and I became significantly more unhealthy and demotivated, I had to find meaning in every single workout because there wasn't much of a future goal going on. I had to really tend to my health and care for myself. So making the workouts mean something every time that I stepped up to do them was a big change in one of the motivating factors. And there's, some non-negotiable habits that you can create for yourself that will keep your body willing to exercise. Things like sleep and hydration and eating generally well really helps with the drive to exercise, and it can help with some of the inflammation in your body. Sometimes it causes the pain that can be barriers. So keeping some other healthy habits for yourself will help to keep your body and your mind motivated to exercise. If you're feeling exhausted and you're not eating well, it's really hard to feel motivated to move your body because it doesn't move as well as when you're sleeping well and you're hydrated and when you're eating a little bit better. Erin mentioned support and community. I think that, getting together with people in a wellness capacity and being able to get out, maybe that's a reason why your workouts matter, so that you can go for a walk with your group of friends and that feels okay. So having a support and a community surrounding you with a commitment to exercise. And just focusing, as I mentioned, on commitment rather than the motivation. The motivation will come and go, but if you're committed and you have those reasons, it takes a little bit of a deeper meaning. And just remembering that exercise is an act of self-care, self-love, and support, and that you do deserve it. You deserve to feel strong. You deserve to feel healthy. I sometimes find that self-worth and things like that tie into some of the reasons why we're not motivated to take care of ourselves. So just recognizing that you do deserve it, and that, you should feel good all the time, and you can.
That's great. Thanks so much, Pamela. So, going back to the chat for a few minutes before we hear from Dee. So people talking about not necessarily feeling demotivated, but not making time for themselves. They're in caregiving roles. They like to do it, but they're not making time. And some people say getting older is a motivator for them, and realizing that feeling you're going to feel better after exercise from Linda. Apparently we have a typo on the slide. We said asses as opposed to assess. Sorry. Oops, I don't know where that was. All right. And the cost sometimes can be a demotivator for people that are, depending on what exercise program they take. So again, thanks so much for that. And let's shift over to one of the most motivating people I know, Dee Simpson.
Thank you, Erin. Well, 13 years ago, at the tender age of 65, when most intelligent people are contemplating retirement, I catapulted into my fourth career. I decided I wanted to be a personal trainer. Because for my entire life, I followed my two greatest passions: extensive adventure travel and almost anything in the great outdoors. And both of these demand a huge motivation to keep as fit and energetic as possible, so you can continue going on and on and on at full tilt. What I'm going to talk to you about today is I have a cautionary tale I want to share with you. Quite recently, I found that my body is telling me that I am getting less young. And I hate to admit that, but that was a bit of a shock. I'm going to be 80 in less than 2 years, and surprise, surprise, my body is changing. For example, in the morning, I get up and I'm feeling a little bit stiff and I need to exercise and stretch. Never had to do that before. And I noticed that when I get up and down on the floor, for example, to show a client a new abdominal exercise, it's just that little bit harder to get down and certainly to get up. And diet, especially with COVID, being home more, with the fridge much closer, I have to be really careful about weight gain, because in my 30s, I was 70 pounds heavier. So when I look at the strategies that I personally use to keep me motivated, I know that I absolutely must keep moving. There are no ifs, no ands, no buts. But do I like getting up 45 minutes earlier in the morning to do my strength exercise before my first client? Absolutely not. Do I like going out into the freezing cold in the middle of a polar vortex so I can get my steps in? No. But I try to do them all in order to stay as fit as a 78-year-old can be, so I can continue to do all my fun activities well into my 80s. But practically, let's look forward. Will I be slower riding my bike? Realistically, yes. And I'm sure that those kilometers that I do on those hills might be slightly less. And I'm sure also that the snowshoeing that I love to do hours and hours at a time, even 5 years ago, will be less as well. But the all-important bottom line I want to share with you all is that I will still be able to continue doing them, doing all those things I love to do, even if it's slower. The alternative for me is just not an option. So basically that's me, but what about you? What keeps you motivated to exercise? My favorite expression or my favorite definition of motivation is the reason why you're doing something coupled with a level of desire you have to do it. So to all you lovely people listening, find out what's really important to you, as Pamela said, what you really want in your life to move forward. Believe it firmly, make a plan, and then that's just a wonderful, wonderful beginning. So now, if I may, I'd like to introduce to you two of my very favorite and treasured clients and share with you many of their barriers and motivations and what makes them motivated to move. And that's Pamela. Pamela, a really, really special 76-year-old artist who, at 55, left a spectacular career as a VP of one of the biggest international advertising agencies to study fine arts for 4 years at OCAD, which included a whole year drawing and painting in Florence. I've been fortunate enough to train Pamela over the last 5 years, twice a week, and I totally, totally adore this lady. And this is despite her telling me constantly how she hates physical exercise. However, she will admit to me that the 2 sessions a week together with me are the only exercise that she gets. And she says, and I quote, "My body would seize up if I didn't have Dee to encourage me, to motivate me, and to nag me mercilessly into action." And then she went on to admit, and probably Dee, this is a poor substitute for motivation, but for me, to pay and show up, that seems to be working. But in fact, Pam does have motivation, despite all her loathing physical exercise. Let me tell you her goals. We put her motivation into goals. One is to maintain her cardiovascular health, so she can walk constantly without stopping or running out of breath, because Pam has very serious COPD. The next one is to maintain her upper and lower body strength, so she can lift and play with her lovely grandchildren, 6, 4, 3, and I believe another one coming next month. And also with them in mind to maintain her ability to get up and down off the floor so she can romp around and play with these aforementioned grandchildren. And finally, her goal to increase her overall flexibility so that her advanced osteoarthritis, which is making her body stiffer and less able to move pain-free, would be a little bit better. I believe that training has to be a real personal relationship between the trainer and the client, and it has to be absolutely as fun as it can be. Pamela tells me that she's feeling confident with the exercises we do together, as well as the fact she's relieved that we can adapt depending how her body is feeling that day, and that changes. I also personally believe that it's most important that we always celebrate accomplishment, the big and the small. Pamela said at the beginning, I just pay and show up and that works as motivation. But I believe it's much, much more than that for Pamela. For example, after a good session together, the huge silver lining for me is that she'll smile at me wryly and tell me that she's feeling proud or really rather surprised at all the accomplishments she did in that very long hour together. So quickly to summarize Pam, her motivation to be able to play easily and pain-free with her beloved grandchildren. Her barrier, she really does seem to abhor exercise. And I wanted to say a lesson learned. And the lesson learned for me is if your goals and desires are really important to you, you will do almost anything to make them come true, even exercise.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you, Dee. So before we meet your next client, a couple of questions. So a few very impressed people. So we have Wendy saying, wow, just wow. So the nice words there. And then Luba asked you to repeat your definition of motivation.
The definition of motivation is, I think it's a very, whoops, wrong one. I'm so sorry. Definition of motivation is the reason why we are doing something, coupled with the level of desire that you have to do it. In other words, what you want and how badly you want it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And this is Gina. Gina is one extraordinary 61-year-old whirlwind. She married in her teens. Ready for this? She has 9 children, ranging from 3 to 43, with the 4 youngest living at home. She was an executive director of a childcare center for many years, and until she took on the enormous challenge of educating her young flock at home. She's also an active environmentalist. She studies at a bird academy. She's looking after her ailing father-in-law. She's taking courses on COVID with WHO. And all this is while completing a degree in social development studies. Due to COVID, Gina and I have never actually met face to face, but we trained virtually together for over half a year. She told me at the beginning she'd worked very hard, and believe me, she kept that promise in spades. I was so incredibly proud of her, as she had changed both physically and mentally, almost out of recognition, and really in that shorter time. However, last August, she packed up her bags, took her 2 little ones, and left town to live in the wilderness with no Wi-Fi. And constantly, our training came to a crashing halt. But happily for me, she's just returned. She told me that when she left town, she was on a real high, physically and mentally. But recently she admitted that during the past, too many months of not exercising at all, inactivity had really taken a toll. And I want to read you something she wrote to me, which I found was very moving. This is in Gina's words. I badly needed support, or a trainer, or a mentor, as it became totally insurmountable for me to even contemplate doing it alone. Looking back, the gains that I made during my time with UD as my personal trainer on a physical level were really, really great. But equally important, and perhaps even more so, was that I no longer felt overwhelmed the way I did at the beginning. Because suddenly I knew I wasn't facing this alone anymore. I realized early on that I needed someone to work with me, someone who would keep me accountable, someone who would motivate me, someone who was trained and skilled to walk with me in my journey to better health and fitness every step of the way. I think that's fabulous. Anyway, it's completely impossible for me to imagine where Gina finds this boundless energy or sanity.
Yep.
But here she is again. We're back training together since last Thursday, and I have to tell you all, I'm absolutely thrilled. So quick summary on Gina, her motivation to gain and maintain that boundless energy needed to fully educate her 2 young girls, just 3 and 6. Her barrier, she really does not have any spare time. And here for me, the lesson learned is if you think of all of you, if you think you haven't got enough time to exercise, think of Gina. As if you really want something strongly, and you prioritize, believe me, you will find the time. Thank you.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. It's amazing, all the things Gina's doing. Okay, and welcome to Bill.
Good morning, everybody. In 2011, I worked for a company for several years that closed its doors and moved operations to the US. I led a team designing and building automated equipment that manufactured the best tools mechanics could buy. There were few jobs available, so I needed to reinvent myself. I had to find something to do. And at that time, I'd worked for 20 years part-time, instructing fitness classes and training people in the evening and on weekends. And I felt really passionate about fitness. I still do. And I decided to follow that passion. And to this day, I realize it was the right decision for me. Now, as we age, our bodies change, wear and tear takes its toll, hormone production decreases, we lose muscle, metabolism slows down, and more than likely, most of us gain weight. And with that weight gain come other things, the risk of osteoporosis, diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease. And I've experienced some of these. At 30, I had to quit playing soccer, a sport I absolutely love because of wear and tear. And wear and tear has restricted how far, how frequently, how fast I can run. And I've gained weight. And I'd love to tell you that the weight I've gained over the last 20 years is muscle. It's not. There's a bit of blubber in there. I will admit to that. I moved from soccer to running and swimming and then to cycling. All of these changes were because the changes in my body dictated that. It wasn't a choice, but I had to make a choice to exercise. I had to make a choice. I love cycling. I love it for recreation, for fitness, and for competition. I do compete. I love running because it clears my mind, although I can't run as often as I could. And I enjoy trail walking with my wife. And together, my wife and I like to travel. We like to go to cities around the world and wander the streets. And to keep enjoying these activities, both my wife and I need to remain fit. That human beings are built to move. Evolution gave us the ability to balance, to walk, and to run, and to dance when we're happy. So the changes from aging don't want to make me give up. They're not going to limit how I spend the rest of my life. I want to continue to enjoy the things that I've been doing for decades. And because of that, I will continue to move. I'll continue to exercise. I will tire my muscles out. I'll allow them to rest and recover, and I will repeat that exercise. If aging can lead to diseases like osteoporosis, high blood pressure, and diabetes, then exercise is my medicine. Can we go to our next slide?
Yeah, Bill, can you just mention that there's some examples on the bottom of your slide about some of the family health crises? Because I think it's easy for us to get derailed.
Actually,
so we're on a good path and then we derail.
I'm going to do that now.
Oh, you are? Okay, perfect.
Okay. So there have been times when I felt just completely demotivated from exercising. Some 20 years ago, my wife had a cancer diagnosis. And 2 or 3 years ago, my daughter was diagnosed with cancer. And I found I did manage to go to a gym, but the workouts were half-hearted. I just couldn't commit. And that's the way it should be. That really is. These things do affect you. And so I did have strategies that helped with that. But one of the things that really helped with that was I took a look at some of the other people that I would see in the gym. And there was a friend, an acquaintance in a gym called Bill, and he had a stroke some 30 years ago. And he still goes to the gym 3 times a week. He's weak all down his left side. And I asked him, why do you come to the gym? And he says, I don't want my left side to get any weaker. it's as strong as it's going to be, but he's not going to let that defeat him. He's not going to let it get any weaker than what it is now. And the first couple of weeks when my daughter had her diagnosis was hectic. But after that died down, with a couple of weeks, she started into regular treatment, hospital once a week for chemo, a visit with an oncologist. And so she was able to return to work for most of that time. And I did not feel like exercising. So one day I was on my way home from a client, and I was going to go to a gym. And I thought, no, I'll go home and see if my daughter needs some help. Can I do something for her? So as I pulled onto my driveway, she was getting into a car with a bag. She was going to the gym. Yeah, I took great courage from that. And so you look around you, take a look at other people. If other people who are worse off than you can exercise, why can't you? So, and now some of the tips that I use at other times to motivate me. As Pamela mentioned earlier about finding your why, find a reason to exercise. When I found that reason, I wrote it down. I keep it in a piece of paper. I keep it on more than one piece of paper, and I look at that frequently. It's burned into my brain. So I take a look at that as often as I need to. And the other thing I do is I write things down. I wrote down that reason, that real big motivation to exercise. I plan my workouts for a week or 2 weeks ahead. You can do this too. You buy yourself a cheap wall calendar. You write down the days you're going to work out. And each day that you do work out, you put a tick at it. And if you don't, you put an X through it. You soon will find that you will do your workouts. You will exercise. Yeah, and I also think about where I was when I started. I have a fitness program from a gym some 35 years ago. And I take a look at that. I still have that. And I saw what I could bench press then, what I could leg press then. And I take a look at it and say, I can still do that, or I can do more. Or, you know, despite being 68 and not 30 anymore, I still keep that. And the other thing I do now, I have been a personal trainer full time for 10 years. I have a coach. I have a coach. A coach has added accountability. My cycling has improved immensely because I have somebody who will give me these workouts. And when I miss one, then I get an email asking me what happened. So the accountability really does make a difference. But the biggest tip I have is on that writing things down. Once you write it down, even if you lose it, it's as if you had written a contract. You have made a promise to yourself, and you will do your best to keep it. And we're going to take a look at a couple of my clients now. All right, here we have a really nice gentleman, Chester. Chester is 84 years old, enjoys playing golf a couple of times a week during the summer. And in the past, he had surgery to repair a torn cartilage in his right knee 30 years ago. And that leg is still weak. He cut out of the physiotherapy early, just whenever the knee stopped hurting. So he got us, he started with Vintage Fit. He hired Vintage Fitness to train and educate him. And he wanted to improve his flexibility, wanted to improve his strength, hoping that that would help him with his golf game. And he noticed that he was developing balance problems at around about 80 years old. And because of that, he would go to a mall and walk. He did not want to walk outside. He did not feel safe or secure walking outdoors. And although we worked in his overall fitness, I placed a bit more of a focus on his leg strength and on balance training. And it did work. It has worked. He's now confident enough that he goes outdoors and walks almost every day when the weather permits on trails out around his home. These are gravel trails and they're hilly and bumpy, but he feels confident enough to do that. And he walks now a minimum of 20 minutes every day. And he does resistance training twice a week with me. And So the motivation strategies that Chester used was, he had no idea of what exercise was about, how to do them. So he hired us to train. And he has a few things that I've noticed and I help to reinforce. He tells, at the end of a workout, he'd say, I did well today, didn't I? And I'll say, yeah, you did really well. And believe me, when you as a client celebrate a little win, your trainer's doing a little dance inside too. What really makes you happy makes us happy. We feel good with you. And he thinks about where he was before. He thinks, if I hadn't started training with Bill 2 years ago, what would my balance be like now? Could I walk at all? Would I need a cane? Would I need a walker? And every now and then, one of Chester's favorite rewards for himself is a burger. He'll go out and just have a good big juicy burger somewhere to celebrate a little bit of a win. So let's take a look at what motivated him. So Chester, sorry, that's okay. What motivated Chester here was to have balance and leg strength so that he could walk like his friends, like everybody else. And age seemed to him to be a barrier until he started to exercise with us. I mean, you might ask the question, who in their right mind starts to exercise at 82? Chester did, and he reaped benefits from it. He really did. He's come on leaps and bounds. So let's take a look at what lesson we can learn from this. Age should not be a barrier. It shouldn't prevent you from exercising. Chester began at 82. It didn't just change his fitness, it changed his confidence, it changed his personality. You're never too old, you're never too late to start exercising. And we're going to take a look at another client now. This is Imelda, 64 years old, ran track and field in high school, played netball, and then did what everybody else does. She found a job, got married, worked, raised a family, and time during those years was a barrier. Right now, she's currently a member of a walking group, and when the weather permits, they walk almost every day or every evening in parks, hiking trails, whatever. So she did start to exercise at a younger age, some 30 years ago. And the original idea then, the motivation of the goal was just to maintain her weight after having a couple of children. Right now, what she wants to do is she wants to improve her cardiovascular fitness and strength. She wants to be able to, she wants to be able to power up those hills with her walking group. In the past, she joined the gym, but she had no idea what exercises to do. So no idea of what exercises to select, what order to do them in, what weight to use, how many sets to do, how many repetitions to do. But so knowledge there was a barrier. Now I found working with her that she's motivated by results. She's motivated by results that you can see. She can see that her shoulders are a little bit more muscular than what they were. She's motivated by the fact that she can do more incline push-ups than she used to do. And if she misses on those incline push-ups, if I tell her we're going to do 3 sets of 10 today, and she can't get 10 in the last set, she'll see that as it's something that she's going to do the next time. She sees that as an opportunity. And at the end of a workout, she'll tell herself, I worked hard today. And she is now convinced and has convinced herself that her fitness will only be maintained and improved through that continuous effort, through what I said earlier. Repeat this exercise over and over again. She doesn't need approval from others. She is completely self-motivated. But when other people do say, you're looking well, she accepts that, and I'm certain that it reinforces her drive. So, and earlier, she worked in a hospital setting, a diabetes clinic, and she saw firsthand the consequences of sedentary exercise in that diabetes clinic. And she's also greatly influenced by health problems experienced by, she's from a large family, and all of her brothers and sisters have had problems, including diabetes, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol. And so she is firmly committed to exercise and believing deeply that it will improve her fitness and overall well-being, and it will help her to enjoy life more and longer. So I've set some goals for her, but I found that she responds to two kinds of goals. Process-oriented goals, where she's not going to say, I'll walk 10 kilometers today. She's going to say, I'm going to walk with the group 3 times this week, 5 times this week. It's the process, not the distance, not the speed. And then I do set performance goals, as in 3 sets of push-ups, 3 sets of incline push-ups for 10 reps. And she gets rewards from these things. She gets a sense of achievement at the end of an exercise session. She congratulates herself, and her friends will say, you look well. And she takes that as a compliment and credits it back to the exercise. So we'll take a look at what really motivated her, the things that spurred her to exercise. She wants to walk further and faster and with that power walking group. She wants to push that group harder. And she wants to avoid the health problems that her brothers and sisters have had. And the barriers were time, and the barriers really were knowledge. She didn't know what to do. She joined the gym. She muddled her way through with absolutely no help from anyone. She didn't know what exercises to select and what volume to do. So the lesson you learn from this is that if you're lost, a trainer can help you. A trainer can guide you safely and efficiently through your exercise journey. Trainer will select the best exercises and the volume to help you achieve your goals and keep you safe by showing you the correct form. And I'm going to turn that back over to Erin.
That's great. Thank you so much, Bill. And again, if you guys have questions, we're just wrapping up a couple of slides, but I wanted to summarize a bit on an action plan. So if you have a pen and paper handy, I'd love everybody that's on this webinar to think about what your deeper why is. So that sheet of paper that Bill has in his wallet, in a few different places, what is that big, deep why? Because as a couple of these clients will attest to, if that's big enough and important enough to you, you will find the time to prioritize exercise in your life. So I would spend some time on that, but jot a draft of it now on your sheet of paper. I'll give you a minute or so to do that. The second thing is really make an exercise plan linked to how you're motivated. So we had some examples there. Some people, like Bill's client, she obviously was motivated by affiliation. She needed to do exercise with other people. That was the most important thing. Whereas some of our other clients were really motivated more by, this is the result I want to achieve. So design your exercise plan linked to how you are motivated. We would like to offer, as a thank you for attending, any people that aren't current Vintage clients, a free virtual training session with Vintage, just to give you a bit of a sense of what virtual training is like. And the current Vintage clients, we had this conversation with us as a training team this morning. There's going to be a discussion at your next session about that deep why, and making sure that each of our clients have that written down. And then as trainers, we're constantly going back and referring to that, because it is more than I want to lose 5 pounds. Why is it important? Because I want to lose 5 pounds, not going to get you out of the door for long, maybe for the first week. Okay, is there any questions that people have at all? You're welcome to put them in chat if you have questions. We've had various ones going. So Anne saying, loving your honesty, Bill. So a lot of nice compliments there. A lot of impressed with both of Dee's clients, how compelling their motives are and how clear. But feel free to reach out if you have questions, and I'll send a link to do a free session, virtual session with Vintage Fitness. So again, I thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate you joining, and we will see you. We will see you soon. So again, reach out and I will send you a link to the recording. So let me just look. It looks like a few things coming up on chat. Okay, so fantastic presentation. Thank you very much, Anne. That's great. A lot of thank yous coming in. Thank you, Luba and Linda. Excellent. Oh, Joy. Oh, all these great thanks so much coming in from everybody. And somebody says, Wendy says, this is giving me motivation. Yay, that's awesome. All right. Again, thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful time. Thank you so much to Pamela, to Bill, and to Dee for motivating us this morning.